It's called Who You Say I Am. Just for a quick second, or you can stay standing. Honestly, it's up to you. So, I'm your host today. Welcome. I'm Kathy. It's so good. Now I can see you all. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So, if you're here for the first time today, we're going to give you a special welcome. We're not going to point you out in any way. But if you would be so kind to tap your phone on that sticker on the seat in front of you and fill out a guest connection card just to make a point of contact. We know you're here. We'll just send you a brief hello and not spam you thereafter. Also, on your way out, if you're new, if you stop at Guest Central, which is that way when you go out the doors, there's a little gift for you. We want to just let you know we're grateful you're here, and give you a little bit of information about the church as well. So that is there for you. And also, shout out to the people online who are watching. We're so grateful for you as well. Just love that the Church of God is not limited to a building. It is everywhere that God's people are. So you are just as much a part of this church as anybody in here. If you have questions or prayer requests, there are hosts online that are there to answer questions and can help you and pray with you in any way. I think that's it. So it was short, thank goodness. So if you want to stand up, we're going to do a couple more songs before Carrie comes up to preach the word today. This next song is called The Goodness of God. perfect plan and your perfect ways for us. Please teach us what you would like us to hear from you today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, you can have a seat.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? Yeah, awesome. That's good. That's a good, peppy response. I love that. My name is Carrie. For those of you who do not know me, I am one of the teachers here at Hope, and I'm really excited to see you guys. Really excited that the weather cooled off a little bit. So that is good. I hope you guys have some fun activities planned maybe to enjoy the weather today. And again, for those of you who are watching online, we're so glad you are with us as well. So we are starting a new series today called Vision Beyond Victim. And I just want to ask you, I've probably asked this before, but how many of you kind of are where you thought you'd be in life right now? For how many of you are things like pretty much going the way you planned? Never, right? Even in the places of our lives, you maybe you're like, okay, I thought I'd be here, I thought I'd be married, I thought I'd be single, I thought I'd be in this town. And maybe some of those things happened for you, but even where they did, you might be like, well, I didn't see parenting going this way, and I didn't see this person doing this thing to me, and I didn't see myself getting let go from this job at this time. And so I think for a lot of us, we may say, yeah, I'm not exactly where I thought I would be. I'm not exactly in my notes where I thought I would be. I think they printed out reverse order. This is totally fine. It works well, right? I'm the victim of my printer. Thank you. All right. I think this is right. It also didn't print double-sided. It told me, it's like you chose the wrong paper size to print double-sided, and I was like, this is the paper size I always pick, so tell me, what did I do? How did this happen, right? How did I end up here? And that is what so many of us might be asking ourselves. And I think it's hard enough when it's something that happens to us because it was maybe our own choice. We can all look back, I think, if we're honest, and be like, okay, well, I should have done this differently. Maybe if I had just studied more for that test, I would have gotten a good grade. Maybe if I just had the guts to apply for that scholarship or that position or that part in the play. So maybe there's a part of us that thinks, okay, these things are partly happening because of my choices. But I think it can be especially hard in our lives when we feel like we are the victim of someone else or something else, whether that's a system or a boss or a friend, a neighbor, a spouse, even a child. Maybe it's the boss who keeps passing us over for a promotion and giving preference to people who are going to bend the rules, but you've been working so hard. Maybe it's the teacher or the drama instructor who keeps not giving you a good grade or not giving you a part in the play, and you're like, but I've done everything right. I've tried, I've practiced. And they keep giving the part to somebody else, and they keep giving good grades to other people, but not you. Maybe it's the situation where people are making decisions for you on your behalf, and you feel like you don't get a say. Somehow you feel like you're silenced in your own story. Maybe even people are trying right now to manipulate, to extort you, to cause harm to you on purpose, and that can be especially painful. You're the victim of someone else's choices. And today I want to talk a little bit about being a victim and what God might have to say about this. And how we can respond when we are in those situations. But I want to preface this by saying, I think sometimes in the church we somehow send the message that if you're a victim, that you should just kind of like grin and bear it and stay where you are and like let the victiming happen. Victiming, that's not a word, but I want to make it very clear right now, if you are in a situation where you are being abused or harmed, it is not God's heart for you. It is not God's heart for you to be a victim, and it is not God's heart for you to victimize anyone else. And so if you are a victim right now, I just want to encourage you, it is good to get freedom. It is good to get out of that situation, okay? That is not God's heart for you. And I want to be clear that when we talk about being a victim, there are like a widely different range of what it might look like to be a victim. So I'm not trying today either to minimize anyone's experience, okay? But I do think that there's sometimes that God has something to teach us when we're in the midst of these situations, and that there can be ways that we can respond that honor God. So that said, I'm going to share a story today that I don't know, maybe is familiar to some of you, but maybe as one that we don't talk about as much. It's in the Old Testament. It's a story about David before he became king. And months ago, actually, Tom talked a little bit about the story so David was anointed by Samuel to be the next king after Saul. But Saul did not like this, right? And so Saul tried to kill David. And Tom shared a story months ago about David hiding in a cave and seeing Saul, and he could have killed Saul. But he had the opportunity, but he chose not to. So this is kind of, this story that we're going to read today happens shortly after that story. So David is kind of out in the desert along with about maybe 600 men who were traveling with him. And our story begins with David and his men in the desert living near a man named Nabal and his wife Abigail. So if you're following along, we're going to be reading in 1 Samuel 25, 2 through 22. It says, a certain man in Maon who had property there at Carmel was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. A Calebite was a descendant of Caleb, so I read that he was from the tribe of Judah in Israel's descendants. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So he sent 10 young men and said to them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, 'Long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours.' Now I hear that it's sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. And the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore be favorable toward my men, since we come at a festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them." When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name, and then they waited. Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat that I have slaughtered from my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" And David's men turned around and went back, and when they arrived, they reported every word. And David said to his men, "Each of you strap on your sword." So they did, and David strapped on his as well. About 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. One of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us. And the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day they were a wall around us the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him." Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go on ahead, I'll follow you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there was David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave one male alive of all who belong to him." All right, we'll pause the story here for a second. I'm going to just quickly ask here, who is the victim in this story? Feel free to shout anything out. Abigail, yep. But there's multiple victims, really, right? David, yeah. Exactly. So it's interesting, it's tricky when we look at who's a victim. A lot of times, even in our realities, if we ask who's a victim, if we do a little digging, we're going to find that usually there's more than one person who's a victim in a story. And in this case, it begins with David, as someone already said. David was supposed to be king. He was anointed as king. That was God's plan and promise. But he is now being chased by Saul to begin with, right? And so he's a victim running away from Saul, so that's the first situation. But then here, in this story, basically he was out in the shepherd, and instead of harming Nabal's sheep or his servants, he was protecting them. And it was sort of this hospitality in that culture where if people took care of your things or your sheep or your whatever and protected you, that the understanding was that the socially accepted understanding was that then you would provide something in return. And Nabal clearly is very wealthy. Clearly he has plenty and can easily help feed David's men, even though, again, 600 men is a lot of people to feed. But the idea is that David is expecting, I've done this good thing, and it is reasonable for me to expect that you are going to take care of me because my livelihood and my men's livelihood depends on this. And so he is a victim then of Nabal, who says, "No, I'm not going to help you." And we almost hear in Nabal's words, we talked a few weeks ago about kinship and how Cain, one of the first ways that we start to distance ourselves from other people is to say, "You're not my brother. You're not my sister. Like, I don't owe you anything." And we see this here a little bit. He's like, Nabal says, "David who? Why is he my problem? Why is he my concern? Like, I have my people to take care of, and I do not need to take care of this guy." And so David does what many of us are tempted to do, I think, when we're victims, which is he retaliates. He takes matters into his own hands. And we have to be very careful. One thing we have to recognize when we are victims, it is very easy for us to turn around and victimize others. And the reason is because we feel so justified, right? Well, he started it. Oh, you should see what she did to me first. Like, I am entirely valid in what I'm doing here. And if we're not careful, we can create this whole vicious cycle where we are hurt, and so we hurt other people, and they hurt other people, and it just goes on and on and on. Nabal's response to David is harsh and hasty, but so is David's retaliation. He says, "Why don't we just go kill everyone," right? Seems to be a common response in these stories in the Bible. Let's just go kill everyone. He actually says, if far be it for me to leave a single male alive. Well, that's harsh, right? That's a harsh response. But as someone else mentioned, we do have other people in this story who are victims. Nabal's servants, right, and his wife Abigail. And the servants are just trying to obey their master, and they find themselves about to be killed as a result. And Abigail, I don't know how long she's been married to this guy. I'm sure she's not wouldn't call herself happily married. And I imagine that this is not the first time that she's had to smooth things over for her husband, who's mean and surly. She's not the one in charge, but her husband's decision is about to bring a lot of trouble for her and trouble for everyone in the household. Through no fault of her own, she would be at the same time a victim of her husband and now also of David if he follows through on his plan to come attack the home. But what does she do? Well, when the servants tell her what's happening, she immediately responds by putting together food, okay? Because hangry is a real problem, and David is hangry. And so she's like, I'm going to pack up all this food. I don't know, she's got clearly a ton of food. She's packing hundreds of loaves of bread and some butchered meat, some wine. She's not playing around here. And she goes out to try to meet David before he can ever come into the home. And I want you to pay attention when she gets to David. I want you to hear what she says, because truly her words are not only shrewd, but they're really prophetic. So we're going to jump to verse 23 here. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my lord sent. And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal. And let this gift which your servant has brought to my lord be given to the men who follow you." She goes on, "Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies will be hurled away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has anointed him ruler over Israel, he will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed, or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought you success, remember your servant." So Abigail, who seems in this story to not have a whole lot of power, does what she has in her hands to do, right? She finds this food, she finds a gift to bring to David, but not only that, she brings this beautiful prophetic word, and she brings to David the gift not only of physical, taking care of the physical needs he has, but of preventing him from stepping into a very, very bad situation. She prevents him from perpetuating this cycle of victimhood. And it seems that clearly Abigail has heard about David. I don't know, maybe she's heard about the story of him fighting Goliath with a sling, because she references how his enemies will be hurled away with a sling, right? And whatever she knows, I believe she knows that he has been anointed by God to become the next king. And so she prophetically speaks that out to David. And we'll get to that more in a second. But notice that Abigail advocates not only she advocates for herself. We see this, and this is important for us to know. God wants us to advocate for ourselves. He does not want us to live in that victim mentality. But Abigail also recognizes that even though she's a victim, she has a little more voice in this story than the servants do. And so she says, I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use what's in my hand. I'm going to protect David. I'm going to protect myself. And I'm going to protect those people that are in my care. And sometimes when we're victims, we have to look at the same way Abigail did and say, what can I do? What's in my hand? Who do I still have an opportunity to help and protect and serve, even in this situation that does not look good? And so David says to her in verse 32, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed, from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." And then David accepted from her hand what she had brought and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." And I felt like I did a lot of reading today, so I'm not going to finish the whole story. But if you're wondering, Nabal, when she tells Nabal what happened, he pretty much has like a heart attack and dies. And so we call that maybe some justice poetically. But God resolves the situation, right? And she actually ends up, David ends up actually proposing to her after that, and that's a whole nother story. But for today, we're going to focus on this story and take away a few points for how this story can teach us what we can do in our lives when we feel like we are victims of other people, victims of circumstances. And one thing I would say is this: when we are a victim, when we're victims, the people we surround ourselves with shape the way we see our situation, ourselves, and God. When we're victims, the people we surround ourselves with shape the way we see our situation, ourselves, and our God. Our identity is so important, and we have to be so protective of who we let speak into our identity and tell us who we are and what we're about. And in this story, I think it's important to realize, like, when we're victims, often we want to surround ourselves with other people who are victims. And part of this is normal. It's like our way of saying, I want to be around people who get me, who understand what I'm going through, who have felt the pain of being rejected, who have felt the sting of being harmed or being hurt by others. But we have to recognize that sometimes we can go in a negative direction with that. Sometimes we surround ourselves with people who are so focused on the negative that they begin speaking things or encouraging us to do things or maybe presenting a very myopic view of the world, and we need to widen our lens. A couple chapters before this story takes place, we're told that David originally began to gather men that were following him. When he started fleeing from Saul originally, he started gathering together this group of people that, again, grew to like 600 people. And 1 Samuel 22:2 says, all those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around David, and he became their commander. And again, at that time, about 400 men were with him. People who were in distress, in debt, or discontented gathered around David. And again, this makes sense that David and his leadership would offer to people, maybe people who were disappointed by life, people who were trying to follow the normal script and the normal script wasn't working. Maybe people who were trying to follow under King Saul's rule and they were not benefiting from King Saul, maybe. And so they were feeling distressed, they were feeling discontent, they were feeling in debt. And it is okay to feel that way, right? It is okay to have those moments, but it matters how we see ourselves in God's eyes in the midst of those things. Because distress and discontent and in debt, they might be things that describe us, but they do not define us. And when we take on these victim descriptions as an identity, then we start to live out of a place of deficit. We start to live out of a place where we feel like we have to claw and fight and earn back our place in the world. We feel like we're powerless and we have to twist the rules maybe to get what we need. Or maybe we begin to build a collective identity around what we are against rather than what we are for. And that can be the danger when we start listening only to people who are in that place of being discontent, right? Sometimes instead of speaking life and speaking vision and speaking hope and speaking God's word over us, sometimes those people can start to speak resentment and anger and negativity and hopelessness. Years ago, I was part of a small group of people that were maybe looking to start a new church, and this was like, again, I don't even remember what year this was. And it was interesting because all these people gathered, and there was one day where we were talking together, and someone who was leading the group said, okay, I want you to kind of share what brought you here. Why are you part of this group today? And I listened as everyone of the people in that room went around and shared why they were there, but I kind of had a check in my spirit because I noticed a trend. I noticed that just about everyone who was part of that group had a chip on their shoulder, something negative that had happened to them in whatever church they had been part of before. And so one person was like, oh, the worship was just not great here, or was not right, or, this thing was, I didn't like how the church handled this before where I was at. And listen, the questions, the wrestles, the constructive criticism was good. They were asking good questions. They were asking questions that needed to be asked. And I admit that I was there too because I had some struggles with the church as well. But I realized that I said it's so easy for us to come together around the things that we are upset about, the things that we are mad about, the things that were not going well, rather than to be, like, it's easier sometimes to be unified in our negativity and in our discontent than it is to be unified around a common goal, around a common vision, around a common purpose. And I think it's something we have to be careful about, that even when we rightfully are questioning things, that we still allow ourselves to get the perspective that God wants for us, that we still allow God to speak into us and say, okay, what life do I want to bring here? Not just what do we see that's wrong, but what do we see that can be right? How does God want us to bring the kingdom into places that are dark and broken? And we see this happening a little bit with David's men. We already established that God had promised the kingdom to David. And actually in the story that Tom shared a while back, where Saul was in the cave and David had this opportunity. Saul was there to kill David, but David had the opportunity to kill Saul instead. And this is what David's men wanted David to do. In fact, David's men said this in 1 Samuel 24:4. They said, "This is the day the Lord spoke of when he said to you, I will give your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish." Notably, I read a commentary, God never actually said this to David. He never said, this is the day that God's given you to do what you want to with your enemy. God had promised David that he'd be king, but David's men were taking God's promise and they were twisting it and they were saying, here, David, you take God's promise and you handle it your way. You take God's promise and you go and get it yourself with violence because it's your right, because God promised this to you. So you should do this, that you would be entirely justified because Saul's trying to get you if you tried to kill him instead. But at that time, thankfully, David stopped himself and did not listen to the negativity of the men, did not listen to the way they were distorting the truth. And I think it's interesting here that Abigail sort of is the contrast then to David's men. Listen, Abigail is also discontent and distressed, right? She's got her own set of problems. And so again, it's not wrong for us to feel that way, but she reacts very differently. She acknowledges that what Nabal did was wrong and she wants to make restitution for that, but then she appeals to God's identity and to David's identity. She appeals to God's identity and David's identity. Listen to what she had said. She said, when the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord, when she says for my Lord, she's referring to David. When the Lord has fulfilled for you, David, every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed you ruler over Israel, David, you're not going to have on your conscience this staggering burden of bloodshed. Basically, she keeps reminding him, when God does what he's going to do for you, right? You need to wait on God, because if God promises you something, he is faithful to complete it. He is the one who's going to fulfill it. And sometimes, even though it's so hard to wait when we are sitting in situations that don't feel just, it is so easy to want to jump in and take things into our own hands. But God says, I need you. Yes, be safe. Yes, take the boundaries and the limits that you need to be safe, but then wait on me to avenge. Wait on me to take care of this situation. Don't do it yourself, because your way is not my way, and your plans are not my plans, and your violence is not my response or reaction to this situation. So she first appeals to God's identity. Let's look at who he is and what he is capable of doing. And then she appeals to David's identity. She says, David, this is not who you are. God has called you to be a king. God has called you to be a shepherd. God has called you to be a protector, a healer, a helper, and that is not what you would be doing. If you go and attack these people, you're going to have violence on your head. You're going to have guilt on your conscience. You're going to go into the kingship with this sitting on your shoulders, and that is not who God has called you to be. It is not who you are. And basically, she says to David, yes, you've been victimized, but now you have a choice to create more victims or to stop the cycle and trust God. Because the truth is, when we are in a place where we feel like victims, it is so hard to let go of feeling like we get to harm other people and trust God and trust that he will act in his way and his timing. It always requires trust in God to not retaliate, but to leave the outcome with God. But because of her actions, David acknowledges that Abigail is used by God to protect not only herself, but also David. And this is where, again, if you are a victim, we also need to be careful not only who we're surrounding ourselves with, but we need to be careful about what we are speaking into other people's lives. Okay? We can be people like David's men, and we can tell someone, yep, you've been wronged, you should go do this, you have every right to do that. Or we can be people like Abigail who say, yes, you've been wronged, and you should trust God. Yes, you've been wronged, and make sure that you don't create more problems for yourself and for others in this process. A few questions for you, if you're thinking about the people that you're surrounding yourself with and the people that you're being to others. Are the people around you encouraging you to take matters of justice into your own hands or put them in God's hands? Are people encouraging you to take justice into your own hands or leave justice in God's hands? Are people around you telling you to act quickly or to slow down and think? Often when we get in reaction mode, we do a lot of things that we regret later. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who tell you to pause. Are people that are around you thinking mostly about your emotions in the present or about the consequences of your actions in the future? People that have your best at heart and are thinking of God's best are always going to be looking not just at the now, but at the long term. And finally, are people around you willing to challenge you, or are they only willing to go along with what you want to hear and do? Do you have people in your life who will say, ooh, whoa, I don't know about that. Ooh, whoa, I love you, and I understand where you're coming from, but I think you got to think this through. Because see, David, when he told his men to strap on their swords, not one of them said, whoa, hey, this seems a bit hasty, don't you think? No, they all were like, all right, let's go do it. Awesome. We need those people around us who are going to slow us down, who are going to invite us to listen to God's truth and God's word. So that's the first thing, is recognizing when we're a victim, who we're surrounding ourselves with. Second, if we let victimhood become our identity, sometimes we get comfortable there and have to relearn what it means to live in God's freedom. Sometimes we almost get comfortable in a victim mentality, and I'm going to explain what I mean. In this story, there's a pivotal moment where David goes from being a victim to suddenly not being a victim, all just like that, right? Because Nabal was not going to give him food. Nabal was not going to provide for him, but Abigail suddenly comes with this, loaded camels full of gifts. And so now David's not a victim. Now David's story has been resolved, but he has a choice to make now. Because if I'm David, if I'm in that situation, I'm like, man, adrenaline is pumping. If I'm angry enough to go and kill people, it would be really hard for me to all of a sudden stop that train of thought and say, oh, I'm not a victim now. Okay, I'll go home. Everything's good. Cool. Right? Like we can sometimes, when we've been a victim, we can feel so emotionally invested or involved that we have a hard time dropping the victim mentality, even if we've been freed. At one point in my life, I had a situation like this where I felt like a victim, where I felt like I did not have a choice in my own story, that other people were kind of making the choices for me. I felt really misunderstood. I felt like no matter what I did, I was afraid I was going to somehow make it worse for myself. And I really desperately wanted to surround myself with people like David, people who got me, people who understood me, and to feel like people were on my side, right? We talked about that a few weeks ago. And I can't say that I handled everything well in that situation, but I do think that I sat with God during that time, and he really brought some clarity to my life. He showed me a lot of things. And I had to sit with God because I was so stuck in this negative loop about how people saw me and the way that I felt like I was being treated. But then, in this story of mine, something shifted, and things began to change. And suddenly the people that I felt like weren't listening to me suddenly were listening to me. And I suddenly felt like, oh, there's this mutuality now, and I feel like I have the pen back in my story. Now, there were still disagreements in this situation. A resolution doesn't always mean that we both sides agree on everything, but it should at least mean that there's mutuality, that we're listening to one another, that we care for one another. But I'm going to be honest, when this situation shifted for me and things began to be resolved, it was like, this is what I've been hoping for. This is what I've been praying for. But there was a little part of me that was like secretly disappointed. Like that's just the honest Carrie emotion that I didn't want people to see. But there was a little part of me that actually enjoyed feeling justified in my anger. There was a little part of me that felt like, man, when everyone was doing things to me, I felt justified in my response. I felt like I could go and do a few things a little outside of God's design, right? A little disobey just a little bit, make things about myself, because look what's happening to me. And it was interesting to me how easy it is for us to want to sit in that reality even after we've been freed. Because you know what God taught me? As soon as I felt like I had the pen to my story back in my hands, I realized, oh gosh, now it's on me. Now I actually have to own my story. Now I actually have to make some choices, and I might be held responsible for those choices. Now it's not things happening to me. I have to step up and own my life in a different way. When we feel like a victim, we feel like the choices fall to someone else, and as painful as that is, it lets us off the hook a little bit. And the truth is that when we become free, there can be almost a scary, even disorienting reality of, oh man, what does it look like for me to write my story again? What does it look like for me to take a risk, to take a chance, to step into new dreams and new plans and new hopes? What does it look like for you to own the pen God has given you? It reminds me actually of the quote by Inigo Montoya in Princess Bride. He lives his whole life, like 30 years, I think, trying to take revenge on his father who was killed. And when he finally takes revenge, he says, I've been in the revenge business so long. Now that it's over, I don't know what to do with the rest of my life. How many of us can relate to that? We've been in this victim mode, we've been in this resentful mode, we've been in this unforgiveness mode for so long that God gives us freedom, God gives us hope, God gives us this new life, and we don't even know how to live in that freedom. And man, maybe that's today for you. Maybe God's like, I want to invite you on a journey to step out again, to be brave again, to own your life again. Yeah, you went a long time where you felt like you couldn't do that, and I'm sorry that happened to you, but I also want you to see now that it's not that way, and I want you to own your story. I believe when we face Jesus, God tells us he wants us to run our race, casting off every distraction and every obstacle. And when we encounter Jesus, I don't think he's going to say, okay, yeah, well, he doesn't want us to come and say, well, yeah, but look what he did, and look why I couldn't do this, and look what, okay. God understands the ways that we couldn't control other people, but God's going to ask what we did, what we had in our hands, and how we lived, and how we ran our race. And in this story, Abigail may not have had a lot of control, but she took what she had at her disposal and her intelligence, and she went and she advocated for herself and for others. And this takes me to our final point about our identity. We've talked about who the victim in this story is, but who is the hero in this story? Abigail, right? I was going to say, so I figured someone might give like the church answer, like God, it's always God. Yes, God's the hero of the story. But yes, Abigail is, in my opinion, the surprising hero of this story. She is a victim, right? But she also becomes this hero who steps in, advocates for herself and for others. She neutralizes the victimization. She stops the cycle. She protects David even. She protects her servants and herself. Now, how can a victim be a hero? Because she was believing that God's identity for her is stronger than what was done to her. That God's plan is not limited to other people's plan for us. There's a story I read once by Donald Miller called 1,000,000 Miles in 1,000 Years, and he shares the story in this book about a man named Jason. And Jason had a daughter who was 13, and she was not doing great. She was dating a guy who was not good for her. She was kind of experimenting with drugs. She was just not doing great. And Donald is talking to his friend, and he's like, man, it seems like she's living a bad story. It's like she's stuck in a bad story. And her friend, Donald's friend, Jason, was like, what do you mean? Like, let's talk about that. And they started talking about stories and how we each are in these stories and how we can live good stories and bad stories and what the elements of a good story are. And after that conversation, Jason had this idea that he should promise to build a $25,000 orphanage in Mexico. Okay. Now he later admitted, he's like, I probably should have asked my wife first before I went and committed to $25,000. But his idea was this. He's like, if a good story involves taking risk, if a good story involves stepping out to do something for other people and seeing ourselves as part of a bigger story, then maybe I need to start that story so my daughter can see herself in that. And admittedly, when he shared initially with his daughter and his wife what he did, at first neither one of them talked to him. They just went to their rooms. But then afterwards, they both came out to him, and their story began to change. The wife said, you know what? Yes, you should have told me, but I am proud of you, and let's do this. Okay, let's jump in. And the daughter suddenly started to say, well, maybe we could go visit Mexico. Maybe I could take pictures of what's happening there. Maybe I could put them on my website, and I could help us raise the money that we need to build this orphanage. And she began to see herself not just as a victim of a bad boyfriend or whatever, but she began to see what she had in her hands and how she could live her life to empower and help others. And so eventually she actually did dump that boyfriend because she was living a better story. No girl who plays the role of a hero dates a guy that uses her. She knows who she is. She just forgot for a little while. She knows who she is. And maybe some of you in here today are like, things have happened to you. You've been in situations that were not good, that were not healthy, that you felt like you had no control over. And maybe it has caused you to forget who you are, to forget who God is, to forget that God is the sustainer, the healer, the one who wants to advocate for you and fight for you. And maybe it's caused you to forget who you are. Maybe you've started to take on labels like abused or broken or not enough or worthless. And God says, that is not who you are. That is not who you are. And I've called you to a better story. I've called you to a story in which you get to be a hero. You get to be someone who goes out and helps others, advocates for others, stops people from being victims. Are we willing to step into the story that God has for us? Are we willing to take even the places where we've been victimized or where we've been wronged and give them to God and let him lead us into a place where we can still honor God and love others and let him fight on our behalf? Even in places where our circumstances are out of our control, maybe you feel like you're not today like a victim of other people's circumstances, but maybe the victim of chronic illness or maybe financial problems or other things. I was recently talking to God. I had some health things that came up, and I was kind of arguing with God. I was like, if you would just heal me of all these things, if you would just take all these problems away, I'd be so much less distracted. I would have all this time and energy to devote to doing what you want me to do. And I feel like God was kind of gently like, well, what would you be doing, Carrie, if you didn't have these things going on? And before I could even start listing the things I would do, God was kind of like, why don't you just do those things? Why don't you just do the next thing that's in front of you to do? And I know it's hard. I know it's painful. I know there's other things that are problems for you, but give me the next yes. Give me the little obedience. Give me the next thing that you can do. And in such a way, God invited me to live outside of my own burdens and to see the story of others, to see what he was calling me into in the midst of my struggles. You are not going to have a perfect story. I'm sorry to tell you that. And when we follow God, I think sometimes we think everything's going to be perfect. It's all going to be great. And it's not. But God promises that he's going to walk us through. And I guarantee you that there is more to your story than you realize. And I want you to hopefully come back next week, because we're going to talk about how sometimes it's the most painful situations, the most difficult or dark situations in our own lives that God wants to turn around and use to illuminate the world around us. So I encourage you to join for that. Will you say yes to the story that God has for you? Yes. Awesome. Let's pray. God, I want to first of all pray right now for people who are being victimized, people maybe even in this room who are in situations that are broken and wrong and should not be happening. And my prayer, God, is that you would fight for them, that you would enter those situations, God, that you would liberate and free and release people from oppression, from fear, from places where they're being harmed. I pray that you would bring freedom in every possible way in the lives of people, God. And so I pray that people that are feeling oppressed and downtrodden and victimized, God, would know you this week as the one who is with them, who is with the broken and the weeping and the weary, and that you are with them to bring freedom into their lives. And I ask that you would do that in powerful ways. And I pray also, God, that you would remind each of us this week of who you are, that you are always bigger, that you are always stronger, that you are always greater, and that we would release our situations and the people and the things we can't control to you, And God, I pray that you would remind us of who you have called us to be. I pray that you would speak over each person today the identity that you have for them, not what anyone else spoke over them, not what happened to them, not what situation they find themselves in, but that you would speak daughter and son and child and life giver and healer and person of love and person of hope, that you would speak these identities to people. And may we, God, walk today in your freedom as you see us, to love others around us and to love ourselves the way you love us. Amen. Well, that is all for today. Thank you so much for being here. Please stay. If you are new, we have at Guest Central, we have like a cup for you, our way of saying, we're so glad you're here. Stay for coffee, talk to some people, and go out and enjoy the beautiful day.